My name is William. I'm 81 years old, and there's a name I have carried with me for more than 60 years that I have never once spoken aloud.
Not to my wife, not to my children, not to a friend, a doctor, or a priest. I've written it down twice in my life, once when I was 19, once when I was 43. Both times I burned the paper. I don't know why I'm saying it now. Maybe because I've started to feel the weight of all the things I didn't say, pressing harder than the things I did. Or maybe because I'm just tired of carrying it alone. I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everyone knew your family, your business, and your mistakes before you even made them. My father worked at the mill. My mother kept house and went to church and made sure we did too. I had 2 older brothers and a younger sister. We were fine. We were normal. But I was always a little different. Not in any way I could name, not in any way that showed on the outside, just different. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't have words for it. All I knew was that when I looked at other boys, I felt something I wasn't supposed to feel. And when I tried to imagine myself married to a woman someday, the way my father talked about it, the way everyone expected, I felt nothing at all. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought if I prayed hard enough, it would go away. It didn't. When I was 17, I met a boy named Daniel. He worked at the garage downtown. He had dark hair and grease under his fingernails and this quiet way of smiling that made my chest feel tight. I started going to the garage every week. I told my father I was learning about cars. I told myself I was learning about cars. But really, I just wanted to be near him. Daniel and I became friends. We'd talk about engines, about music, about leaving town someday and going somewhere bigger, somewhere we could be something else. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but when I was with him, I felt like I could breathe. One night in the summer before I turned 19, we went for a drive out past the quarry. It was late. The sky was purple and the air smelled like dust and gasoline. We were talking about nothing, everything. And then he pulled the truck over. He turned to me and he said, "William, do you ever feel like you're pretending?" I didn't answer right away because I knew what he meant. And I knew that if I said yes, everything would change. I said yes. He reached over, and for the first time in my entire life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. We sat there for a long time, just sitting, not saying anything. And then we drove back. We never talked about it again. 2 weeks later, Daniel told me he was leaving. His uncle had a shop in Ohio. He was going to work there, start over. He asked if I wanted to come with him. I remember standing in his driveway, looking at his face, and feeling like the floor had opened up beneath me. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say yes so badly I could taste it, but I didn't. I told him I couldn't leave my family. I told him my father needed me at the mill. I told him it wasn't the right time. He didn't argue. He just nodded. And 3 days later, he was gone. I wrote him one letter. I told him I missed him. I told him I hoped he was doing well. I didn't tell him the truth. I didn't tell him that I loved him. I didn't tell him that letting him go was the worst thing I'd ever done. He never wrote back. 6 months later, I started seeing a woman named Margaret. She was polite. She came from a good family. She went to our church. Everyone said we made a nice couple. So I married her. I don't think I ever lied to Margaret exactly. I just never told her the whole truth. She was a good woman. She kept a clean home. She raised our children well. We had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. I loved them fiercely. But there was always a part of me that felt like I was watching my own life from somewhere far away, like I was playing a role I'd been handed and didn't know how to put down. Margaret and I were married for 41 years. She died 7 years ago. At her funeral, people told me how lucky I was to have had her, how rare it was to have a marriage that lasted that long. I smiled and thanked them, but inside I felt something I couldn't name. Not grief exactly. Guilt, maybe? Or just exhaustion. After she died, I thought maybe I'd finally feel free, but I didn't, because by then I had spent so much of my life not saying the truth that I didn't know how to start. I didn't know who I would even say it to. My children have their own lives now, their own families. They call me on Sundays, they visit on holidays. They love me, but they don't really know me. How could they? I never let them. A few years ago, I was cleaning out the garage. I found an old box of things from when I was young. Letters, photos, a wrench Daniel had given me once as a joke. And at the bottom, folded into a small square, was a newspaper clipping. It was an obituary. Daniel's. He had died in 2003. He was 62. I don't know how I got that clipping. I don't remember cutting it out, but I must have. I must have seen it, kept it, put it away, and then forgotten. Or maybe I just couldn't bear to remember. The obituary said he had lived in Ohio, that he owned a repair shop, that he was survived by a partner named James. A partner. I sat on the garage floor and read that line over and over. He had built a life. He had loved someone. He was brave enough to live as himself. And I had spent 60 years pretending. I think about him all the time now. I think about what my life might have been if I had gotten in that truck with him, if I had been brave enough to say yes. I think about the version of me that could have existed, the version that didn't spend his whole life hiding. I don't know if that version would have been happier, but I think he would have been more whole. I'm 81 years old, and I have never said Daniel's name out loud, not in 63 years. I've thought it, I've whispered it to myself in the dark, but I've never spoken it to another living person. Until now. Daniel. His name was Daniel, and I loved him. I don't know what happens when we die. I don't know if we get to see the people we lost again. But if I do see him, I think the first thing I'll say is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was afraid. I'm sorry I let the world tell me who I was supposed to be. I'm sorry I wasted all that time. I don't think there's a lesson here. I don't think there's anything I can tell you to make this lighter or easier or worth something. I just know that I carried this for 60 years, and it was heavy, and I'm tired. If you stayed with me through this, thank you. I don't know why you did, but I'm grateful. If there's something you've never said, something you've carried alone, I hope you find a way to put it down before it's too late. Or maybe just say it, even if no one hears, even if it's just to yourself, because silence has a cost, and I paid it. Daniel. His name was Daniel.